Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to episode 69 of Discourse in Magic with Anna D. Anna is a fantastic cardist and a brilliant girl. We talk about cardistry, we talk about magic, and then we start talking about the overlap between those two things. Like, how do you credit in cardistry versus magic? Or is cardistry for laymen, or is it just for other cardists? And what social media has done for the cardistry community and what we can learn from that in the magic community. If that stuff interests you guys, you are going to love this episode. One more thing, something really interesting. After almost 70 episodes of the podcast, this is the first time that when we pressed off on the recording, the person on the other end of Skype said, "Do you guys want to jam?" And then we spent another 30 minutes jamming, learning some awesome cardistry moves, talking more magic and cardistry and cool stuff like that. So big thank you to Anna for teaching us some cool moves and coming on the episode. And for those of you that were wondering, yes, she asked to be episode 69. You guys are going to love the episode? Here we go. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Discourse in Magic. My name is Jonah.
My name is Tyler.
And we are here with a whole bunch of firsts, actually. We are here with our first cardist, maybe our youngest interviewee yet. We are very excited because she is making waves all over. It is Anna DeGuzman. Anna, how are you doing?
Hi, how are you guys doing? I'm doing phenomenal. I went with fantastic and then I switched to phenomenal.
Fantastic and phenomenal.
I'm stealing it.
I don't know. That was a really good intro. I was like, what? Who's on the show today?
It's you.
That's really cool.
Yeah, so we're really excited to dive in. We've spoken a little bit about playing cards, as that's been a really big evolution in the last so many years, but I mean, a lot of that is centered around cardistry, the cardistry community, and sort of where that's going on. So usually we start by asking how they got into magic. I know that now you're doing magic, but how did you get into cards, cardistry, magic, whatever, the whole thing?
Well, I originally started with magic, of course, and then got into cardistry. I think I was like 9 or 10. And my cousin showed me this card trick, and I was so fooled. I had no idea how he did it. It really got me angry. And I noticed that like he looked it up on YouTube. So I like go through his search history on his computer. I find the video. I learned how to do it, and I was like, haha, I do it. And then from there, I kind of like did a little card tricks like from that YouTube channel that I learned from, but I never really thought much of it. And then fast forward, I moved, and then I found a deck of cards at my aunt's house, like brand new sealed, and like my mind connected a deck of cards with magic. So I was like, can I have this? She was like, yeah. I look up that same YouTube video because I remembered the title on YouTube, relearned that trick, and then just watched a whole bunch of that person's videos. It was Miss Mag, which was like the OG like magic tutorials video. And so that's how I started. And then over time I got introduced to like Theory 11, Illusionist, a bunch of magic websites. And from there, you know, I found out about magic and cardistry videos, you know, like videos set to music with like fast cuts and like flourishing and like color changes, stuff like that. And then I was watching them and I'm like, I can do that. So that's when I started making my own YouTube videos, and that's pretty much what I do now, which is just YouTube videos of me flourishing.
That is really cool. And one of the reasons why is, you know, we're in this transition period where anyone who we talk to who's over the age of whatever it is, 20 or 25 or 30 or whatever, they all started magic with a book in a magic store in the back room. And now we're getting to the place where people, like actual accomplished magicians and cardists or whatever it might be, are getting into magic through YouTube. The place where, you know, a lot of magicians are very negative about, a lot of magicians are very, they don't have so many great things to say about people learning off of YouTube. But I think, I mean, Tyler and I are very much advocates for millennials in the world of magic, you know? Yeah. And like, we almost have to like put up our pitchforks and fight and say, that's how people get into magic now, and they can end up just as good as you ended up, even though you started with a Vernon book and they started with YouTube videos. So I think we were talking about first, I think it's awesome because it's our first guest who got into it through YouTube. I don't know, I just think that that's so exciting.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. And, that's huge. I didn't know that either.
I think it's huge. And the other thing is sort of that turnaround of birth from the world of YouTube and then back into the world of YouTube. So let's talk a little bit about that. Cardistry seems to live in what you were talking about, this like video with editing, with fast cuts, with music. Like that's where Cardistry lives online. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I think it's a very visual art form, and it was very YouTube heavy when I started. So making like a really proper high-ish production video for YouTube, where you like saved all your moves and then put it on a YouTube video. That's how the community kind of found out about each other, like commenting on each other's video. But nowadays it's all shifted to Instagram, which is a lot more instant. You don't have to worry about production quality as much in your videos. You just do like a quick 15-second clip of one move and like share it with everybody, and you can be like known in the community and start making
and it spreads much faster that way, and there's a lot less work put into it. What I'm interested in is when it comes to creating a YouTube video or something like that, do you think that is where the art in cardistry lies? Like, magic happens also spread through videos, but more so in person, one-on-one through performance, whereas cardistry, I found, is much more of a online social event. I know there are meetups and stuff like that, and CardistryCon and all that stuff.
We'll get to that.
I don't know. Just what do you feel? Is there more of an art involved in the coming up with the moves, or the editing and putting them together and finding the right music and what your style is?
Okay.
And all that?
Now I understand the question. Okay. So I think original moves gets you a lot of respect in the cardistry community. You know, you could be good at doing other people's moves, which is totally fine. And you can make an entire video of you doing other people's moves that's just really well shot. And you'll be like, oh, they did a really good video. But I've noticed in the community more and more that it's about like your own moves. Like, people want to see something new. And you can do a really beautiful spring, but you know, they've seen that already, and it's like, yeah, spring is a beautiful move, but it kind of gets stale because between the community, it's like, oh, we've seen that already. To laymen, it works, but it's in the community, you can't just...
It makes me think of skateboarding.
Yeah.
It makes me think a lot of skateboarding, where it's like, anyone can do a kickflip, but nobody's going to be the next Rodney Mullen unless they're the next Rodney Mullen, you know what I mean?
And the other thing... Oh, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, yeah, it's often compared to skateboarding because, like, they both do tricks. They have custom decks, except one uses your hands and the other uses your feet. Like, I've heard that comparison a lot.
That's awesome. And one of the things that's really cool about cardistry is because it's so, like, fresh, you know, you can recognize someone by their style of cardistry. And I mean, that's true for magic, but that tends to happen when there's someone who's been doing magic for 27 years. You know, we all know David Williamson, Rocky Raccoon, Munchie Munchie Munchie. Like, that rings bells to us. But if you see a guy who's been doing magic for 3 years who learned from YouTube versus another guy who's been doing magic for 3 years who learned from YouTube, I mean, if you're just shooting their hands, you might not even know the difference. With cardistry, especially with this evolution, like you're saying, and the heavy weight on the importance of style, you can tell the difference between people. I mean, you see a video and you automatically know, oh my gosh, this is this guy. Oh my gosh, this is this guy. And like you said before, with Instagram, like, whole worlds of cardistry are unfolding with like a hashtag, like card destroy, you know, for an example, is for people at home, if you don't know, it's cardistry with cards that get destroyed, so bent or ripped or torn or stuff like that. And like, you could literally look up a hashtag and it's this whole style and world of
isolations,
cardistry. I was just going to bring up isolations. What are some of the more popular ones? I'm not super into the cardistry world. I know a little bit, but it's not something. Yeah.
Like, what do you mean? Like the different types of cardistry?
Yeah. Like
I mean, there's packet
isolation,
cutting.
Yeah.
And then there are these things called squids, which are like trainers. They're like blocks of acrylic, and they're made to create new flourishes easier. Instead of dropping 52 pieces of paper, you drop like 4 or 5 blocks.
Fantastic.
And so the aim with those is to create packet cuts, and people who use them are packet cutters. Then isolations is kind of my thing right now. I'm really into isolations. It's typically with a single card or 2 cards. It's not usually with a full deck. And then sometimes people do stuff with a full deck.
And it's kind of like, to almost explain it, it's kind of like contact juggling for playing cards, you know?
Yeah, if you were to compare it to anything, contact juggling. It's called isolations because it looks isolated, like it's floating. It's really magical.
Right. So it's like your hands are moving around a static card in the air.
Oh yeah, and then there's static cardistry, which is like display based, pretty much cards that are like configured flat to like Harapon. He does a lot of those. I don't know how to say his last name, but he takes the Virtuoso deck and he like just makes these really intricate.
Yeah, there's just a video that came out.
Flat.
Yeah, which didn't have any hands in it, which was the first time I've ever seen
Was it called No Hands or?
I think it must have been called something like that.
Yeah, something like
which
that.
Which is just so cool that, you know, we've like, because cardistry part of it lives on that online video world, you can make a video that's cardistry that doesn't even have people moving cards in their hands. I just thought that was such a cool thing, you know, that everything is so new now that one person can do one thing and just revolutionizes the industry. And like, that seems like, I think someone mentioned something about how at CardistryCon, like, everybody was doing something that was new and crazy and fresh. And I think that has a lot to do with what you were saying about how, like, you know, in the world of cardistry, the value is placed on doing something original and special and not just releasing a video of you doing someone else's move.
Well, just to touch up upon what you said about, like, you can recognize hands and stuff, like having a style.
Yeah.
The thing is, a lot of, I'm going to say kids, because it's mostly kids, they kind of don't have a style yet. They do packet cuts, but packet cuts get mixed in all together.
Right.
And for laymen, who is the majority demographic you should be appealing to, not other cardists, they don't understand packet cuts. It's too complex for them.
Right.
You know, they understand what I call flare moves. Flare moves in, like, dancing is like when people just do backflips and stuff like that. So flare moves in cardistry to me are like spring, flicker shot, things like that, like aerials. And the verts do flare shots really well. And that's why they go viral. That's why they get recognized. That's why they're so successful in their brand. And I think a lot of kids, why they don't, I'm going to say, blow up, like they don't grow, is because, they're doing really cool packet cuts, but laymen, to get recognized by a layman, they're not going to understand how complex this packet cut is. We in the community can appreciate your original cut and how much work you put into it and how hard it actually is, but they will never understand it. No, I'm not going to say never, sorry. They just don't understand it right now. Right now.
So there's something interesting that I want to touch on that you said, which is very surprising to me, which is that I sort of thought that cardistry was a self-fueling thing. So to me, there isn't really like laymen in cardistry. I kind of thought that cardists, my almost question is, like, with magicians, there's almost an obvious layman. It's the person, you know, you go do a show and you go, but I've never seen a cardistry show. I've only ever seen cardists meet up with other cardists, or cardists put videos on YouTube or Instagram or whatever, which I guess mostly gets shared around by other cardists and magicians and stuff. So where is it happening that cardists are doing things for laymen, or like, is that the goal, even though, like, you understand what I'm saying? Like, I guess I've never really thought about it as being for laymen.
That's really interesting to me, actually, that you said that, because I think a lot of magicians don't realize how big the community is, one, and that there is a market as a cardist for you to do like strolling cardistry. And I think that's really, it's rare, but it happens. And people are getting hired to do what strolling magicians do, but just cardistry. So, and a lot of the jobs that cardists get, I admit, like, magicians get pretty much the same job, but we're doing cardistry. So things like hand doubling, things like consulting. There's cardistry consultants now in movies, which I think is, like, really cool.
Awesome.
See that in the end title.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry, what did you ask me? Oh yeah, layman. Okay, yeah. So yeah, there are laymen. It's kind of the same thing with magic. It's someone who doesn't do cardistry, basically. Muggles. I call them muggles. Like,
right.
muggles.
But like, is the bulk when you find yourself doing cardistry, is the bulk of it for other cardists, or do you find yourself doing, I don't know what it would be, like street magic, like street cardistry, like do it, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I've only ever seen it in this sort of cardistry to cardistry community. I've never really seen someone like go on the streets and do cardistry for people, or like a video of someone doing a show of card. You know what I mean? Like, I've never really seen it being done for laymen.
Well, I've seen a few people do cardistry live, and it's a thing people do, and it can be done. You kind of just have to do like a 1 minute uncut routine, basically live. And just don't drop cards.
It's like a dance, right?
It's like juggling. Yeah. That's actually kind of terrifying.
It's different than magic because me, especially when I got back, I stopped doing magic and just did cardistry for the past 3 years. And when I did that, and then recently, just in the past 6 months, I got back into magic, I lost how to talk to people. Because cardistry, you do in your room by yourself, and you don't have to do any storyline or pattern. So going back into doing cardistry live, I tried to talk, and I tried to not just like have music in the background at a restaurant that I tried to hit. I was like explaining cardistry as I was doing it, and my live routine that I do for people is like a build-up. So I start off with something flashy to catch their attention, like an aerial, and then I go into like, okay, you guys have seen a riffle shuffle. Well, cardistry built upon that and made these fancy shuffles, so that I go into like friffle to cascade, and then I do packet cuts, but I do like really basic stuff to cardists. Like, cardists will see it and be able to do everything I do, because I'm not showing them the really intricate packet cuts. They will not understand it. They will not appreciate it. So I'm doing worm, like classic move. I'm doing the worm. I'm doing Sybil, Chris Kenner, like super classic, simple. That's all the packet cuts I do. And then everything else is just flare moves. So I end off with spring because I think it's the biggest, the most powerful, I think, to laymen. I don't know what it is, but they love the spring. So I always end off with that, because if I start off with that, I think everything else is like a decline.
Yeah, you have to fly.
It's one of the things I get asked a lot as a magician. It's like, oh, you do magic? Can you spring the card? Like, they don't say spring.
They don't say
often do.
spring. They're like, can you do the big thing? And then they'll like,
you know what the funniest is? So I have a really funny, So when I can spring the cards, but I do it, my hands are about a foot away, and they're like, it's a line, like it goes from one hand to the other. When they describe it like you're holding like a rainbow in your hand. And what I would always say to them when they would say like, can you spring the cards like this in a big rainbow? I would jokingly say like, well, actually, I'm not a cartoon, so I can't. But I've now seen a couple of cardistry videos of actually, thank you. I've seen a couple cardistry videos of them actually springing it and it going in like an arc and then passing the other hand.
That's the goal. I think Andre Gic really popularized like doing a really large spring and like showing showing that it is possible to stretch out way further, like
those
over the
slow-mo
head.
shots where it's just like his hands are completely spread. It's just it's gorgeous. It's so good.
It's so cool.
Listen to us all be like, we're so flustered by the beauty of it. But it's funny because, we talk about the things the feelings that come over you when you watch magic, which is this impossibility, this no way, this, and how magicians or good magicians, work at what that specific response is, and look at us responding to a Cardist days, weeks, months, years after we've seen it right now, just being like, oh my God, whoa.
It's magical.
So beautiful,
magical.
Right. So there's a little bit to it. Or a lot to it is what I meant. So before we talk about a little bit of the overlap between cardistry and magic, I want to talk about something that really, I think, excites me most about the cardistry community, which is that I feel like the cardistry community now is what the magic community was in its golden age, you know? When everyone, the thing that everyone talks about, and we would meet every Sunday at the back of the pizzeria, and they called everyone by name, and like everyone knew everyone, and every move they knew who it was, and now we're getting out of that world because there's so much, and because that's just not how it goes. But the cardistry community is so strong, like it feels like you can go to a city and say, oh, I'm doing a cardistry meetup, and like 30 people will come out, and they're all cardists who have been doing cardistry in their bedroom, and it's just incredible. And you see this like cardistry con, like it sells out in like, I don't know, like a minute or whatever, like something stupid.
A minute.
Yeah. So like, I'm just wondering, touch a little bit about on the community, maybe why you think it's so strong, and some of the things that you've had integration into the community.
Well, when we do meetups, you're lucky if you get like 10 people. We're so close because there's not that many of us yet.
Right.
You know, the community is really tight. I really do consider it like a family because everyone kind of does know everybody, and like you kind of just know of people and you hear names come up often, and that's just kind of how it goes right now. Mm-hmm. And with CardistryCon, all these kids, like, they've never met any other cardist before, most likely. So when you host a jam, a global meetup, and all these kids get to come out and meet their, you know, inspirations and other friends, and then they find out, oh, you're also in the same state, you're also in the same country, you're also in the same town, like, then, you know, they meet more people, and then hopefully they get to meet up again in real life. The cardistry community is really strong, I think, right now, just because we're all so close. And as we grow, I mean, I even said this year was 200 people at CardistryCon. I've been to all of them. So the first one in Brooklyn was 52 people, like 52 cards. And I was the only girl. Last year in Berlin.
Wow.
Yeah, last year in Berlin,
we'll get into
Germany,
that next.
Yeah, last year in Berlin, Germany, there was 100 people. And then this year it was 200. And I was like, wow, it's going to be less intimate, but it just shows the exponential growth of
literally, you can look at the graph. It's doubling every year, right?
Yep. And like, it's sold out in a minute. If they allowed for more tickets, it still would have sold out. Right. Because I thought 200 was a lot, but then I was like asking magic people, and they're like, that's really small. Like, for a magic convention, that's small. And I think
and there's one of them a year
to be bigger than magic, or just as big.
Okay, settle down, Anna. Settle down. I'm joking.
Well, we have to remember, magic has been around for a long time, and cardistry has been around, not as long, but it's only recently been popularized. So if it continues at this rate, I don't see any reason why we couldn't be. I
was just playing, but I fully agree that right now there is no downward trend in sight for cardistry growth across every board. Like, I mean, there's decks being kickstarted every day. There's people, like, there's videos.
Jimmy Fallon just put out a deck of cards.
Yeah, like, it's just
it's obviously marketed towards you people. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So definitely really cool. Definitely like growth across it. Talk a little bit about the community aspect going on online. I don't think magic comes close to what's going on in the worlds of like Instagram and YouTube in terms of the cardistry community.
Yeah, so with cardistry being online, because it's not like a secret with like magic is, you know.
Right, you were mentioning this earlier.
You can't reveal, you know, the way it's done. Cardistry, it's all out there. You know, we're very open about sharing. We're very willing to share. We want people to learn, because that one brings it exposure and brings new people into the art,
Right.
And those new people will innovate cardistry. Because if we just keep it between like...
Are you listening, magicians?
I have to remind myself that this demographic of your podcast is like older men magicians, and it's probably hard for them to listen to me.
Middle-aged.
Yeah.
Middle-aged. Okay, I'm sorry. If you're above 30, would you say 30? 25.
Yeah, but I actually think a lot of our audience is a little bit, I would say, on both ends of that.
Well, it's also a podcast,
right,
which means they have to know how to work iTunes.
Right.
Yeah.
No hate. What was I saying?
You're basically talking shit about our listeners. No, you were saying that. Sorry, couldn't help myself.
You were just saying that you had to keep in mind who was in our audience while you were talking about what you were saying.
Oh yeah. So before that.
You don't have to hide the secrets.
Oh yeah. Okay, the secret.
Yeah,
This,
like sharing.
Yeah, so if you only keep it between the certain group of people, like how to do a move, then how will anyone else learn it, and how will they like make a variation to where they can create something new?
Right.
And all the new people, I thought we all grew up. Like I thought I was growing out of it, like getting old for it, and I thought a lot of people who I came up around the same time were getting old of it or getting too old for it. But then I remember that there's like a new generation that is coming up who are now looking up to us. And I totally forget about
you're legitimately calling the people who are attending these events kids, and what are you, like 19 or 20?
Yeah.
19. I'm 22. I mean, like, I'm a kid too, but it's just funny that like that they're coming up younger than you, and
it's so crazy. Like when a 12-year-old just does everything flawlessly, I'm like, what?
Destroys me.
And like when they do a move better than the creator, that's even like, ooh, like it gets really,
and because it's all
intense.
so fresh, like it's so fresh, right? So a kid, like what took 5 years to evolve could take a kid 10 days to learn the whole evolution of, because he wasn't part of it unfolding. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So there's like, so there's this like
their entire time doing it. That's what, like, I think a lot of the demographic of cardistry is between the ages of like 11, 12 to like 18, 19, just because those teen years are when you have a lot of time to yourself where you can just work on this. When you get older, you have to start working about like school and jobs and stuff.
And like what you were talking about, I mean, I would argue that it would be really tough for cardistry to grow the way that it has over the last 10 years if it wasn't for the growth of social media, you know, and being able to share things and look at things and like things, and because I almost feel like Instagram was made for cardists, you know?
Yeah,
I feel that all the time.
Format.
Versus you watch a magician do something on Instagram, and I always joke that it's like crotch magic, right? Like you got a video over a crotch, and then them doing like whatever, the lift, and put in the deck
funny.
and lift, and like.
Oh
Yeah,
my gosh, I'm gonna start saying that.
Thank you.
It's funny.
It's very exciting to me that, you know, I love the tie between cardistry and like young people, because they're getting into magic through visuals. You know, they're getting into cardistry through visuals, through seeing people do incredible stuff in a 30-second clip, right? And it doesn't require someone, like you were saying before, to be incredibly articulate. You know, it doesn't require somebody to like
read.
Yeah, to read. Like
that's huge.
But it is huge.
It's huge.
You know, like
I didn't pick up a magic book until I'd been doing magic for 3 years, because that's how much I don't like reading stuff.
Right.
Especially when I was younger, right?
There's actually cardistry books.
Really?
Yeah, like a few. There's
like
the encyclopedia, and that's like the old one. But like, I mean, recently a lot of like just graphic books that are tutorials. The Danish boys put those out, so there's a couple of those. Not many, but there are.
So would you say that most of because you were talking about how there's not really secrets, is most of cardistry readily available, or do you still have to give someone $12 for an instant download to learn how to do a cardistry move?
Okay, what I'm about to say is not a lot of people will agree with,
Perfect.
But and we should also add, in my opinion, at the end of everything I say for this
Of course.
podcast. Yeah. So the thing with cardistry is because it's not a secret. With magic, the sleight is supposed to be hidden. You don't know how they're doing it, like in a trailer.
Right.
When you watch a cardistry video, it's very, I'm not going to say easy, but you can kind of reverse engineer the video to where okay, so I'm going to start in this position, I'm going to swing this packet around, spin that, and you can figure out a move roughly. If you buy a tutorial, like if it's available to buy, then yeah, you'll learn like actually how to do it properly, like from the creator, with the subtleties, how to hold it properly, instead of you trying to guess how to hold the packets and stuff like that. And yeah, there are some cardistry tutorials that you can buy, but for the most part, people just put them out on video, like not for free, but not even to sell. Like people just make performance videos that
and you can just emulate it.
Yeah, and then if you just figure out how to do a move, I personally do not think it's wrong. I was talking to a magician about it, a magician who happens to also do cardistry, and I did a move, and he's like, "Did he teach that to you?" And I'm like, "No." And he's like, "Oh, so you just figured it out by watching the Instagram video?" I'm like, "Yeah." And he's like, "If I was a cardist, then if I saw someone doing my move that I haven't put out yet, I'd be so angry." And I'm like, that's because you're looking at it from a magician.
I was just about to say
that's such a magician's way of thinking that you have to do that because it's not a secret. And this guy whose move I was doing, he later put it out in a tutorial, but it's like you can buy the tutorial to support the artist. That's usually what I do when it's not necessary to learn the move. I want to support the artist. But like if you figure it out, maybe you're not doing it all the way correctly, and then it's all of a sudden a variation. So you can do whatever you want with that.
Right. And one of the things that I think that really highlights is because there is still this secrecy in magic, it grows. There's no question that other arts grow faster. There's no question, because in magic, you have to get a secret, right? Like in each secret you have to get on its own, basically, until you're at a point in magic where it happens very similar, like you're saying in cardistry, but that really is frowned upon in the magic community, and often for good reason. I mean, I guess it depends on where you come from, but I think it's a real point towards the speed of the growth of cardistry, which is you watch a video and the only thing separating you from doing what they did in the video is time, right? Like,
correct.
is
I
you
think
just
that's actually very, like, I never thought about it like that, but yeah, I agree.
Whereas in magic, one of the things that, just to pull this together to something we spoke about in an earlier episode, is like the magic stream, the thing that was just released with
Illusionist, yeah.
So,
I heard about that.
So that was released, and one of the reasons why, which Brad Christian mentioned, was that when they struggle to release magic trailers, because often if you watch a full trick beginning to end and you have enough magic knowledge, you can emulate it. And you don't need to spend $9, $12, $15 on the trick. You can just do it like cardistry style, right? So there's almost like the fact that there's secrets in magic makes it difficult for someone to buy a trick that they can figure out with their eyes because they're a magician, and now the trailers have to hide what's really happening in the trick.
They're a trick themselves, the trailers, I find. They're deceiving you into thinking you're buying real magic when you're not.
Because they have to cut out anything where you can
anything
understand.
where you're like, that's where he did the shift. Oh, that's where he did this.
Exactly. So I think that's a really interesting thing to highlight about cardistry, which is that it's an open source art form.
Mm-hmm.
Like you can,
which is so crucial for its growth, because
you wrote an essay about how magic should be open source.
Yeah, and like especially because you mentioned that kids are a huge part of it, and they don't have a lot of disposable income, but what they do have is what you mentioned, time.
Right.
They have a lot of disposable time, and
they have their parents' credit cards. I think that's
true. That's also true.
But it's not the same as a 30-year-old spending $1,000 on a piece of magic tech, or $500, or buying three $80 books. Like buying a $12.
Magic is expensive.
Yeah,
it is.
I mean, like, I'm talking about the high end of it. Like, obviously you can buy like a $60 book or like stuff like that.
They sell books for $5, but like that's the point is that cardistry is so free flowing and so accessible that there is legitimately nothing holding you back. It doesn't even matter who you like. Yes, crediting is important, but not anywhere in the same way as it's important in Magic, where like someone will come after you.
Ooh,
if you
can we talk about that for a second? About
please.
Cardistry. So I think it's the Magic side of Cardist that go back to the whole crediting thing, because it's really hard to credit cardistry because not everyone knows where it started. Like like going back to the kids, like they may have gotten into cardistry at a time where, you know, they don't know about the old school guys, you know, the guys who really started it. And, you know, then do we have to credit the swing cut and then like the Z grip? Like you have to, if you want to do crediting, then we have to do crediting all the way to where every piece of the cut has been dissected and like it each is like,
and that's insanity.
And that's it's not too difficult. It can be done. And recently at CardistryCon, someone introduced an idea of what is that called? Like Conjuring Arts has it, or like where they
a database,
yeah, pretty much of like cardistry moves. One, they can do that, but it's gonna be hard to get that database started because there's so many moves out there already. Right. And then you're gonna try to credit all sorts of people that may be incorrect just because, oh, this person did it in this video, but oh wait, I actually saw someone else do that like 10 years ago or something like that. It's really difficult to credit cardistry. And yeah, I like to do like inspired by, because I can't really give credit to someone who may be the improper person. Like maybe I saw this person do it, but it's actually someone else's move that they were doing and that they didn't really credit. So
I think what might evolve, and I don't know, but I think what might evolve is schools of cardistry, not physical schools, but, you know, like the people who, like, it was a big wave when, forgive me for not knowing anybody's name, but like when they started like bending the cards, you know, like that was crazy. Like nobody did that before, right? And there's different schools, like, you know, when isolations got popular and different. So I think it's going to be more along the lines of what you're saying, where like you can be inspired by something that someone did or an interesting twist, or even like, you know, someone started a revolution of cardists doing it this way, and you can be part of that, you know, world of school in what you do. But I think it's going to grow to be very difficult, especially what you mentioned earlier, which I had never seen before, which is like a cardistry routine, which is like, what are you going to do? Like credit like 70 people? Like, what do you do even, right?
Yeah, see, I'm like asking you guys as magicians, when you guys perform, not lecture. When you perform to a regular audience, do you credit?
Absolutely not.
100% no, because I'm trying to hide the secret from people.
Well, yeah, true. Backtrack. Are you doing original stuff, or are you doing other people's stuff?
A little bit of both, but I mean, even if I'm doing someone else's material, there's a lot of my own to it. But regardless, I do not credit.
I say that I do original routining, but zero original magic. I've never come up with a method that I've performed on. I mean, I've performed like card tricks for friends and stuff, but I've never like gotten on a stage and done something that wasn't someone else's with my twist on it. But regardless, I would not credit. Okay,
now, have you guys done a lecture before? Either.
I have not lectured before. No.
You've done workshops.
I've done workshops, but for non-magicians.
For non-magicians, yeah.
Which is very different.
I've never lectured for a magician. No.
Okay. Well, in lectures, just from other people that you've seen, do you think they should credit?
I mean, there's usually credit in like the lecture notes, or they'll bring up their inspiration. And how maybe they arrived at it, which is relevant in terms of crediting. I think if things are published, they should be credited. But obviously in a lecture, there's only so much time. And a lecture is kind of like if you put on a good lecture, it's kind of like a half lecture, half show. Like you still want to entertain your group of magicians. So time is at a premium, and I don't think it's so bad to say, like, the credits are in the notes, you know? The same way the details are in the notes, so are the credits.
Oh,
like, I don't have time to go through 300.
I've seen magicians credit during their thing, but only during their lectures, but only when it's a very crucial, pertinent credit. Like, they're going to say, put the coin in classic palm or finger palm. They're not going to be like, as done by so-and-so in 1876.
But they might say, like, it's really important that you do the Ramsey subtlety here.
Yeah, you know? Or if they're like, this is a variation of Jay Sankey's move, da-da-da-da-da-da-da. You know what I mean?
Okay, so I'm a member at the castle. I just got in, and I started going to the lectures. And I don't know if they do lecture notes, but they, like, sell things. Like, they sell... they teach what they're selling pretty much. Like, so they'll have DVDs out and be like, okay, here's what's on this DVD.
Yeah, same idea as lecture notes.
With cardistry, I don't know, it's a touchy subject, I guess, to some people, because tutorials are, like, frowned upon if it's not your move, obviously.
Right, which is fair.
Which is fair, and then for original moves, if it looks like someone else's move, like, then you might get a little bit of, like, oh, this looks like this person, why did you teach it? This is, like, kind of a variation or whatever, but it's not. And I don't know, people get kind of weird about tutorials. But for the most part, I've always thought about it as you want people to get into cardistry. You want people to learn. They're only going to learn if there's tutorials out there for them to get into. And, you know, it's not a secret. You know?
And it's funny that you bring that up, because I feel the same way about magic, in the sense that, like, if someone's really interested in magic, I'll teach them a trick. Not the one I just did for them, but I'll teach them a trick. But, I mean, what you said is true, which is that it's different than cardistry, because there is that ingrained thing of, there is secrecy, and it's only a magic trick because they don't know how it works. And I can't just freely say, you want to learn what I just did? Yeah, let me show you. Right? Like, it takes away the value that was in the trick. So if somebody wants to learn magic, I teach them something small, maybe with a coin or something very simple, for the same reason that you mentioned. Like, I want them to be in the world of magic, but obviously, like, same thing. Like, I can't teach them I can't publish someone else's trick just because I think that more people should learn it, right? Like,
okay. Well, teaching someone in person, would you say is different than putting out, like, a video tutorial online on YouTube for free, right?
Oh, totally.
Yeah.
Totally, yeah.
So, yeah, you'd be willing to teach someone something in person live, but you would, like, never teach that, like, in a video.
Yeah, but also, I mean, sometimes if someone's released a trick, or I think that the trick is valuable enough where it is, if somebody asks me about it, like, if there's, I'm trying to think of an example, but if somebody asks me how I do a trick, I might very well say to them, like, I'll show you how it works, but really, if you want to learn how to do the trick, I highly recommend buying so-and-so's book, because that's where it's in there, and he writes 25 pages on the matter, and I'm going to give you 2 minutes on it, and I highly recommend it, right? Yeah. Or I'll even say, like, I'm not going to teach it to you because it's not my place to teach it to you. I didn't create it, but if you want to go, like, this is the direction where it's in. So there's still a little bit of that in the world of in-person instead of online. But yeah, obviously there's a little bit of a difference.
I also think that there's a big difference between magic and cardistry, in the sense that part of magic is semi-believing in magic. Like, there's that moment of, like, how did that happen? Right. Was that real, or was it just skill, even though it's obviously just a skill and not magical powers? Whereas in cardistry, it's kind of like dance, where it's like,
that's real skill.
Super, yeah, it's just straight up raw skill. It's like, how did you do that? And you're like, I practiced.
You're not trying to pretend to do something, you're doing it.
Yeah. So I want to dive into I think likely one of our final topics, which is being a girl in the cardistry space. We've spoken to a couple of different women in magic, and we had a full episode about it. And some of the different things that Rosemary Reed.
And
it's okay if you don't know her, but we've also done an episode with Raven and with Suzanne.
I know Caroline. I met Caroline last year.
Yeah, she's fantastic. And we always talk about it in sort of different lights, and one of the things that comes up is the pros and the cons. And one of the cons is that you stick out like a sore thumb because...
No, that's a pro. That's a pro.
And then I was just going to say, that's also one of the pros. And we had differing beliefs where Rosemary was saying that it was almost very difficult being a girl in the magic space, and then Caroline was saying how excited she is about it and how all of the unique things that she gets to do and how it, she stands out for being a girl and stuff like that. So can you talk a little bit about what that's like in the cardistry space? I
get asked this so much, so I have so much to talk about. Well, I would say it's a pro, of course, just because you want to stand out. You want to be unique. So I live in LA right now where everyone's kind of doing the same thing, right? And you need to figure out what makes you unique and for you to stand out, to get a gig, to get a job. And being a girl is one thing because there's not that many girls. So use that to your advantage. I know most people listening and just most people in our industry are mostly men. So yeah. I automatically take advantage of that. And right. Before I was like kind of discouraged about it because it was like, oh, this is kind of like a nerdy thing. Like, why am I doing this? Like, it's not really girly. But then I realized, like...
It's 2017.
No, like that too. But it's also just like, I'm like proud of this. Like, I'm really passionate about this. Why am I embarrassed about it? And then from there, when I owned that part, that I wasn't embarrassed and I was like taking advantage of it fully. And I never wanted to be known for being a good girl. I wanted to be known for being a good magician. So I don't want to be known as a good female magician. I just want to be known as being a good magician or cardist in general. Like I really strive for that just because I don't want people to think that I don't deserve certain maybe opportunities or gigs versus someone else. So that's something I really strive for. But just in general, like not just the girl thing, like you want to find that one thing about you that makes you unique, because there's so many magicians trying to do what you're doing. They're trying to get that gig. They're trying to get attention by corporate companies and brands and commercials. So what makes you different? I already have the female thing going for me. And because there's already like rare girls getting into it, when they are looking for girls for a commercial, let's say, there's only a few of us to choose from. And because I put myself out there on social media, then I'm easier to find, and I've already established like I can do this. So there's that. I guess cons about it. It's mostly in the magic industry. I think cardistry, it's there, but it's not as bad. But whenever I go to the castle, like when I first started going to the castle, I'm sitting in the lobby and I have a deck of cards in my hand, and I hear people, like this happens so many times, I cannot tell you. Like I'll be sitting with a deck of cards in my hand and they'll be like, oh, that's so cute, she's learning. And then I'm like...
I would be like...
And these are laymen, and sometimes they're magicians, because like I don't wear the castle pin just because it doesn't go with my dress, for example. Like I just don't wear it usually, so no one knows I'm a cardist unless they actually know me. So they just like, oh, did someone teach you? Oh, where did you just buy?
Did you learn your first trick?
Yeah, like it's just assumed, and I'm not really offended by it because it's kind of sexist, but I'm not really offended by it because I understand that. No one assumes that you're a female magician. It's very rare. I'm not mad about it at all when it happens because I understand. And then I'll just whip out cardistry and they'll be like, oh.
Yeah, and like cardistry, I mean, like magic, one of the things about cardistry is, it shuts up haters real damn quick.
It really does.
Real damn quick. And I mean, for magic, like I used to, not so much anymore, but like when I would approach a table and I was like 17 years old, like I would eat up the initial facial reactions and judgment. I mean, people would not go as far as to say like, oh, cute, they're learning magic. But I would love when people would judge me because I knew that moments later I would show them something absolutely impossible, so right?
Crucial.
So, and I'm sure it's the same thing for cardistry where like someone's like, oh, you're learning that's so nice. Do you want to play a little card game with a deck of cards? And then you go, whatever, all this stuff. And their
so
jaw
fun.
drops the floor
it's
and you're
really
like,
fun. It's
clean up
especially
that
like I'm in line at the castle lectures, right, on Sundays. And it's all older magicians that usually go to these lectures, and then there's me. I'm one of the few juniors, I feel like, who show up to these because I really try to take full advantage of what the castle has to offer me. So I go to these lectures, I'm in line, and I really don't talk to a lot of the older magicians just because I don't know them and they don't know me. So I just I'm just there by myself, and I'm, doing cuts, and they're like looking, but they don't say anything. and then one person will be like, "Oh, you're really good at that. Oh, you're one of those card shufflers." Like the classic old magician lines.
One of those card shufflers, eh?
Yeah.
That's so funny.
It's fun.
So the last thing that I wanted to touch on is, and we've sort of threaded in and out of it for a while, but I just want to touch on the world of social media. I think that it's so cool. We're talking about like people being young and this thing evolving. And I think it's so cool that you're like 19 years old, but like you said, like someone will go to a meetup and be like, "Oh my gosh, Anna DeGuzman," right? Like,
no.
And it's crazy. Like, hey. It's crazy. And it has to do with something that Tyler and I are passionate about, especially very recently, which is like documenting everything, sharing your growth, sharing what's happening in your life. Like when you have something new or something fun, sharing it online. And like, it's this crazy, crazy world that is different than it was 5 years ago and 10 years ago and 20 years ago. And I mean, at least some of you must know, or at least a part of you must like be so thankful of the world of YouTube and Instagram and Facebook and whatever the case may be to sort of build yourself that audience. And I know we're thankful with the podcast that we've been able to grow a sizable audience of magicians, and it would only be because of social media. So many of my gigs come from social media and things like that. So I just wanted to hear you touch on a little bit about how it's helped and sort of some of the things that you've liked, maybe things you're looking forward to, because we are the youth. We are what people look to for social media.
Yeah, so I am so grateful for social media. I always wanted to do like YouTube videos, and then when I saw Cardisty kind of shift more to Instagram, I realized I quickly had to be on Instagram more and put content out there. So when my Instagram is like my personal Instagram, and I would just post pictures of myself, my friends. And then one time, I think it was like someone like tagged me in something where they're like #PassToFlourish. So they like tagged me to do a flourish. And it was like my first time ever posting any card related thing on my Instagram. #Cardistry, #magic. Grew so many followers.
Right.
Like not so many, but like faster than.
No, but for sure, like it's crazy.
Yeah.
Like you post like # like card porn or whatever, and then you get 20 new followers.
Yeah, because like I've been on YouTube, but I never put my personal Instagram connected to my YouTube because I wanted them to be separate. I wanted like my personal life to just be normal, and then like my card stuff to be online. And then when I posted like a card video, I grew, and suddenly people were finding my Instagram because they were able to find it now because I related it to the card stuff. And then when I saw how fast I grew, I was like, okay, this is what people want to see. No one wants to see selfies of me. Like that's played out. To grow, I need to be different, and the thing that makes me different is the card stuff. So started making more Instagram like videos of me doing cardistry, magic, and like card photography as well. And I think the number one tip, I'm going to share this with the listeners, because if you listened all the way through, like you're a trooper.
Yeah. Stop making it sound like they was boring, They should have.
For a while. So people connect with eyes. They connect with a person. So when you post a photo of just your hands, the crotch shot, that isn't like it could get viral, it could get views, if it's a really good move, but they want to connect with you as a person. So when I do card photography, I try to put myself in the photo. I don't just put it on like a black backdrop and like the cards. It's really crucial that it's not just anyone in the photo, not just anyone putting the cards on the table. It's me. People want to see this photo because I'm in it and you're in it, for example. And then with videos, I'm still like working out the video stuff because it's really competitive. But
yeah,
most of my gigs or like any projects that I've been offered are because people found me online. Okay, none of it has ever been.
That's huge. Say,
I don't know.
Say that just one more
how.
time. Just say that again one more time.
I don't know. I don't want. I'm not that great. I'm just.
No. But really, legitimately, say it again.
All of my gigs and projects that I've ever been offered have been given to me because those people found me online. From my YouTube videos, from my Instagram.
You would not believe how many people need to hear that.
Fantastic.
Like, thank you.
Yeah,
thank you so much.
Yeah, so
it's finally not coming from us.
I mean, yeah, older magicians don't have Instagrams, which is really hard for them. But if you have an Instagram, or even if you have a YouTube channel, like, make a video every once in a while, it puts a timestamp on, like, say a project you're working on or a move, like you can always go back to it to show people. And then, nowadays people aren't really handing out business cards. They'll be like, oh yeah, let me get your info, and I can just be like, yeah, check out my Instagram. There's my portfolio. There's my resume. They don't need to see anything else. I don't have to go to school. I don't have to.
No more resumes.
So amazing.
No more resume.
But what's amazing is that you're saying so many of the things that we've been excited about on this podcast, and so many of the things that, like we almost talked about at the beginning with you being born from YouTube. Like, we're excited about the way that magic is going, both because, what are we going to do? Cancel magic on YouTube? Like, it's not a thing, right? Like, like, you laughing at it is a good point, right? It's like, it's impossible. So what we should be doing is embracing it, learning how that's how the world works now, and that we need to dive into it. Like, and just being a huge part of it. And it's awesome to see somebody who's saying, like, every opportunity I've ever had in terms of this has come from the online world, and the online world has only grown because I posted, right? And, like, fuck. Like, there's people that just don't get it for 2017, that it's the fastest way to grow. The fastest way to grow right now is utilizing the fantastic growth opportunity. Exactly, that is social media. We get judged for this social media, but like you said, social media is where all of your opportunities came from. I think where they will continue to come from, and it's just what the internet is right now. It's where people spend all of their hours, and if you don't believe me, just realize that if you're listening to this, it's probably on your phone. It's probably of the internet.
I was really inspired by, like, all these YouTube magicians, and they weren't utilizing it. And I admit I actually am, like, kind of off my game because I don't post as consistently as I really should. And there's all these new people, even like all these girls coming up that are like dethroning me, honestly. I really look at it like that because, that's how people find people nowadays, social media. So when they're looking for someone, they're gonna like Google them, and you better be the first thing that pops up when they search, like, whatever they're searching, like magician girl, Cardisty girl. So
yeah, and it's actually funny because the girl that I've been following, the other, like, you and one other cardist, and the other one is literally Cardisty girl. I'm sure. I was
just introduced about her. Like, Cardisty, someone showed me her Instagram, and
I think her Instagram. What's so cool about it is we were talking about the journey, and what she did was like 100 days of cardistry, learning a different thing each day, and like literally it's such an example of what we're talking about, which is she went from not knowing cardistry to knowing cardistry, but she did the whole thing publicly and amassed followers because of it, because of the sharing, right? So imagine as a magician at home, if you're thinking to yourself, I'm not good enough. Like, I'm not good enough to start sharing, right? You're Cardisty, you're like, if I was better, I could start sharing. You can literally document yourself learning and getting better, and people will watch it.
People want to see progress. People want to follow. Right. People want to follow that journey. They really do. And
that goes back to your whole show your face and connect.
Yeah.
People don't really want to see the progress of hands, but they do want to see the progress of Anna or Jonah or Tyler.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Tyler and I always talk about, like, listening to our older podcast episodes and how we cringe and stuff like that. But it's also nice to watch us develop as humans on a podcast. We
as
realize what jokes.
Yeah, I was watching.
Exactly.
I was listening to your old stuff. You guys really keep it on point.
Now, you mean?
Yeah. Of course.
Oh, good.
You're only going to progress. You're only going to get better.
Exactly. And like some of the early episodes with just Tyler and I, like what we used to do is we used to sit in a room and record 6 hours of just him and I talking, and then we'd release 45 minutes of it. And that was how we came up with the podcast for him and I. And now we sit down and we have, I think, arguably good content. And like, so one of the things that you're mentioning, which is people do want to see you progress in every way, in all of the different things that you do. And, you know, almost as the point of like, don't delete old stuff, you know, just like keep getting better. And like, no one's going to judge you for what you did 4 years ago. They're going to be excited about where you are right now. And that's kind of the world of social media. Like, if every day you post where you are right now, I think people will follow and follow your journey. I think that's a really cool premise.
Yeah, you're right. With Instagram, I think Instagram's algorithm really favors users that are
who
consistent.
post a lot. Yeah.
So yeah,
no question.
You'll grow. Naturally, you're gonna grow if you just post every day. Even like with daily vloggers, like I think people underestimate that too. Because as much as Instagram is really where it's at right now, YouTube is still very powerful in terms of like a larger, more loyal kind of following. Because they have to commit to going to YouTube, you know, finding your channel, clicking the video, watching it, and all that stuff. So they want to watch you if they're watching you on YouTube. Instagram is Instagram to just go by.
Yeah, and if you don't believe me that Instagram's where it's at, just go on any piece of public transit in the next 10 days and just look into everybody's hand. That's it. If you don't believe that Instagram is where everything's at right now, literally just go on any piece of public transit and look in people's hands and you will change your mind. When we get to the end of the episode, we have a few different things that we do to wrap up, and one new segment. So the first new segment that we do is to keep this podcast alive, we want people to recommend people that we have on the podcast. Now, I will say two things about your recommendation. The first is, if it's a cardist, you will not be the only cardist on this podcast. So it's up to you.
Oh, you want me to do it? I thought you were telling like the listeners to do it.
No, well, there's nobody here right now. So
okay.
For you, if there's somebody in this world, in the world of magic or cardistry that you think is important and pinnacle for us to have on, who would that be?
This is hard. Wait, can I first ask, how did you guys find out about me?
I found out about you because I was in a car ride with you for 3 minutes. And then from there, I don't know, I added you on one of the socials, Instagram or YouTube.
So there it is. Look at that, like living proof.
Exactly.
Like I got this opportunity because of social media. There it is.
That's exactly right.
I don't know. So who is someone I want you guys to interview? It's most likely going to be a cardist.
That's okay.
And I think someone who I really would love to see more recognition for is this guy named Sean O. I don't know if you guys know him.
I've heard the name for sure.
Popping on social media. I think he can be so big, and I don't know, like, there's no reason why he can't be. I think he's really innovating cardistry and social media and trying to produce higher quality content, and his production quality, his video production quality is really high. He has a very distinct style when he makes videos. He edits them himself, and they have a certain flow to them that I can't explain. Like, just look at his Instagram, not Sean O, N-O-T-S-A-A-N-O.
Not Sean O.
And he's killing it right now. I don't think he needs me to plug him. He's like just absolutely like really doing good in terms of his photos, and he does his photography himself, he does his videos himself, edits everything himself, and I think he could talk to you guys a lot about the social media thing and kind of producing higher quality content consistently, because he's pretty good at that. And he was doing the YouTube thing, but now I see him posting on Instagram.
Wow. I'm just looking at his Instagram.
Yeah, right? And he does these like he does image manipulation, and I think that's so, like, that's his style. That's his brand.
That is high quality content. You described it perfectly.
Wow, this is
we're like
gorgeous.
He's honestly like my brother. Like we've hung out multiple times. He lives kind of far, but when we do see each other at like Cardisty cons and things like that, you know, we're really close. And I really want to just share the love with him because he's really great. Right?
Sorry, we're just like
I don't know what you're watching, but I know it has to be good. He only makes good stuff.
Well, that's fantastic, and thank you for recommending it. Hopefully you will be the first train in a long train of Cardists on this podcast. Because we are... Wow, such awesome photos. We're just looking at it.
I just want to leave some people with some things. If you're a magician listening to this, don't be afraid to get into cardistry. A lot of people always say, "Oh, I'm too old to get into cardistry." You're never too old. Like, just you don't even have to get so complex. You don't have to be the best cardist. You can learn a fan, or you can learn like an aerial, you know, like a one-handed cut, like a fancy shuffle, and it'll add to your routine so much. Because I always say, like, instead of just flipping over a card and presenting it like, oh, that was your card, if you like shoot it out of the deck and catch it in a fan, like that's for sure. It enhances your magic. Because I know a lot of people are afraid to do cardistry because they're like, you have to be minimal. You everything you have to do is very like slight, heavy, and secretive and covered. Yeah. And cardistry is really flashy, but it just enhances your magic. I promise you. Like there's no reason why you can't do it, and I really hope someone listening to this who doesn't do cardistry looks it up and tries to learn, because it's not that difficult.
Well, I'm fucking inspired.
Yeah, I mean,
like I can do a Sybil and a worm, but other than that, I'm useless. But now I'm inspired.
There's a lot of easy stuff that you can get into, and you can call yourself a cardist.
And you know what? I mean, while I think that it is style independent, and the same way that there's cardists who do different things, there are magicians who are like minimal and they aren't shooting things through the air. As a magician who does a little bit, is somewhat minimal, but does a little bit shooting things through the air. You know, I do a trick and they go, wow. I do a trick and they go, wow. And then I spring the cards in my hand and they go, do it again. Yes. Oh my gosh.
I think it's the sound. I honestly, I've tried to like analyze it. I think it's the sound of the spring that people really like. I think that's why. And they like visuals. Like they want displays. Yeah, like in this social media age where everyone has really short attention spans, they want visuals. No one wants to sit through the 10-minute build-up storyline. I'm sorry,
if you can do something.
I'm sorry, magicians, like they just don't. You know, they can't deal with it. They want.
I mean, you have to be a certain level of captivating to have someone on the edge of their chair for 10 minutes, and very few magicians can do that.
Yeah, it's something I've been talking about with Chris Mayhew lately, is that magic has become very procedural, and it needs to be more focused on entertaining. And I think cardistry is a great way to bring that entertainment into the procedure of magic.
And for like street
That's a whole conversation, though.
Yeah, for street performers, I think street performers should use cardistry to entice people to come over. Because it's really easy to kind of use that visual to like lure people in. And also for cardists, any cardists that are listening, they're not doing it right. So and by that I mean the reason that only a few cardists get, you know, these commercial gigs. You'll see the same people offer the same consulting gigs, and with magic too. Is because those are the people that put themselves out there. They may not be the best cardist, but they're the ones and I can openly say, I know I'm not the best. I don't even think I'm that good at cardistry, but I put myself out there, and I brand myself using flair moves, because you have to remember, you need to not try to appeal to the cardistry community. You're trying to make cuts that get featured on Best Cardist Live, which are run by cardists, which are approved based on their standard of what they think is a good cut. But cardistry community is the minority community. That's the minority demographic. And if you want to grow, if you want exposure, you need to appeal to laymen. And you can do good moves that are cool to cardistry and laymen, which is the ideal, but it's really hard.
And the same way how we talk in magic about, I mean, in this podcast we talk a lot about like creating your own magic opportunities from nowhere, right? Like, you know, to book magic gigs, you just have to send 100 emails to the right people and then someone will book you, right? And like things along those lines. And I mean, for Cardistry, like, basically what it seems to come down to is producing that content, you know, actually doing it, releasing it, having your brand sort of evolve, like just being an entity, and you can be featured on whatever it is, you know, whether it's your local newspaper saying that there's a popular cardist in town who's got 10,000 followers and there's this new thing called Cardistry that no one's heard of, you know, or you're on your local television station, or you can hit up legitimate media if you are doing enough quality things. And what that will usually amount to is releasing quality things, right? Because no one's going to know, or it's hard to prove that you're doing awesome cardistry stuff if there's no video footage to prove it. So I think a lot of it comes down to that content creation. And the final thing, or the final two things that we do on this episode, the first is sort of final wrap-up reflection thoughts. So like you mentioned, it's a long episode. It's been around an hour and 15 minutes. Anybody who's listening to it, I mean, they're probably doing other things, whether they're cooking or driving or just sleeping, really. If there is one thing from the episode, we each go around and mention something that we think is particularly important. And for me, I think the whole almost like poeticness of the burst from YouTube and like releasing back into it is so important for the young people that are listening to this, right? Is to just release, share, document. And I love the world of Cardistry because it seems like Instagram was built for it, and I am just really excited to see what continues to grow of Cardistry, because it is growing at the fastest pace I've seen anything grow ever. And it's just cool to be a part of it, and it's cool to have things really fighting on this side of the social media argument. So that is one of the most exciting parts for me of this episode. Tyler, what was a highlight for you?
I love this idea of doing cardistry for laymen and making your content consumable.
Yeah.
Like, you want something that will share and be spread around the internet, not something that demonstrates that you have the most skill, but it's something that is legitimately watchable,
right,
and tailored and quality. And this Sean O guy, like, looking at the stuff that he makes, a lot of his stuff is just amazing photography.
Totally underrated. Yeah, totally underrated. Dude.
Yeah. It's so, like, I'm just looking at this.
It's just beautiful.
It's just beautiful. I don't even care about the fact that he's doing amazing moves. Like, I don't care how hard it is. It's just like these are beautiful, captivating images and videos.
Really
so yeah,
that was about just quality.
Just quality, yeah.
And Anna, is there something from this long episode, something that you mentioned or we mentioned or just was mentioned, that you think is particularly valuable for the people at home?
I think the whole part about utilizing social media to get gigs. We talked about how when I said I've gotten every opportunity based on social media, I think that's really crucial. And I think people really underestimate the power of social media. I think people who don't use it are stuck in the dark ages. They need to get on that. They need to put themselves out there and put themselves on a... So, you know, like Gambit, right? You know, like the movie, but with starring Channing Tatum. I really want to be on that. I don't know what I'd do, but I would love to be, like, in the background doing that. And that's, like, the goal right now. And utilizing social media to get attention from the producers and whatever else, and commercial gigs and, you know, Disney... They're going to look at your social media. That's what they care about. They want to see what kind of pull you have. So you need to grow that following. You need to, and a lot of people buy followers just so they can have that number. They can have that number that says whatever. That they look at engagement. They want to see likes, and that's more powerful. So just worry about that. Make the best content that you can, and figure out that thing that makes you unique. That's another thing. Like, that's the number one thing. Just figure out what you have to offer that other people can't do, whether it's a style. Because I always hear magicians say, like, you have to be more interesting than your tricks.
Yeah.
That, you have to keep that in mind. And
still translates in the world of cardistry.
Yeah.
And I think that's awesome, and I think you've given the people at home a lot to play with and a lot of good social media motivation, which, you know, it's tough for us to get guests on that are on that side of the argument, so thank you so much. And finally,
thank you.
Plugs. Tyler and I are a bunch of plugs. No. Feel free to plug whatever you want. I'll basically say straight up, you should all follow her on Instagram at the very least, Anna DeGuzman, and YouTube. What is it? It's Anna D?
Yeah, ITSANNAD on YouTube. And then Anna DeGuzman is my Instagram. It's just my name.
All fantastic, and they're great to watch. Really, really love it. And is there anything that you want to tell the world? You've got about 1 million magicians listening right now. Is there anything that you want to tell them? Yeah, something like that. Although I haven't counted.
Although
anything I have not counted, just an estimate. Just round to the nearest million. Actually, the nearest million.
Well, just thank you guys so much for having me on the show. I really appreciate it, Jonah and Ty. I've never actually done a podcast, so this is my first for me too.
Another first!
Yeah!
First. And just create good, consistent content, and you'll only progress and learn. And I hope all of you just took one thing out of it, and that way it would have been worth it for you. And if you guys are ever wanting to jam and talk, just hit me up on Instagram. I really mean that. I really enjoy meeting up with people and talking and sharing ideas. Jamming is so fun to actually put a real life face to this typing on the internet. So just hit me up on social media. I would love to talk and share ideas. I really appreciate you guys putting me on here. So thanks again.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And we're starting to hear the cuts going on in the background, which means that is time. Anna, thank you so much for coming on the episode. It was really, really fantastic. Our first cardist and our one of our first real social media advocates. For those of you at home, here's what I'll say. Just make one more video. If you're going to make 0, make 1. If you're going to make 1, make 2. Just make one more video, and I think that we will have done it. Heck, if even one of you makes one more video, I think we did our job. So thank you, Anna, and of course, thank you at home for tuning in to another episode where you learned about theory. So there you go. You're better now. You're a better magician than you were before. Doesn't it feel good? All tingly inside?
Yeah. Nice, warm fuzzies.
Pretty tingly, very tingly.
Awesome. And I think that's a wrap with all the tingles. Anna, thank you so much.
We'll see you all next week.
Thank you guys
Take
so
care.
much. Bye.
Later. Boom! Booyah! There you go. There you have it. All about cardistry. Everything you need to know. Now it's time for you to do what we asked. Make one video or photo or really long post on Facebook. Make one more piece of content than you were planning on and tag us in it. We are very, very excited to see it. Otherwise, thanks for your ears. See you Thursday.